Hello everyone, welcome to Tech and Target. This is you Hemant Kumar, and in this video onwards, we will solve coding questions that were previously asked in TCS. So we will start with the most basic ones and eventually we will increase the difficulty level so that you do not face any problem understanding the solutions and the intuitions behind them. So without any further ado, let's get started. So we'll start with the first question. So the problem statement says that, so given a string is input consisting of star and hashtag, the length of the string is variable. The task is to find the minimum number of star or hash to make it a valid string. The string is considered valid if the number of star and hash are equal. The star and hash can be at any position in the string. Note, the output will be a positive or negative integer based on number of star and hash in the input string. So if the star is greater than hash, then the output should be a positive integer. If the hash is greater than star, then the output should be a negative integer. And if hash is equal to star, then the output should be 0. So if we'll understand the question with a example, but before that, we'll try to understand what actually the question is saying. Okay. So the question says, so we are basically given a string, yes. So that will be consisting of only stars and hashes. So if you can see here, so this is the input string that was given to us. So that will be consisting only of hashes and stars, and that can be in any order. And they also say that the length of the string is variable. So it does not mean that the length of the string will be only 5 or 6. It may be anything. It may be anything. It may be 1, it may be 2, it may be 0, or it may be like around 1,000 or 10,000, whatever it may be. So they say that the length of the string is variable. All right. So they also say the task is to find the minimum number of star or hash to make it a valid string. So they are asking what? They are asking us to find the minimum number of stars or hashes to make it a valid string. Now, what do they mean by valid string? We'll get to know about it. So they say that the string is considered valid if the number of star and hash are equal. So a string will be considered valid only if the number of stars and the number of hashes in the given string, if they are equal, right? So the star and hash can be at any position in the string. So as we know, so according to the example they have given, so first there was hashes and there were strings. There were stars, but it can also be possible that first there will be a star, then be a hash, then be a hash, then be a star. It may be whatever. There is no any predefined set of rules for the order of stars and hashes in the given string. So the question simply asks us that, so we have to print how many stars or how many hashes are required to make the given string as a valid string. So what we have to do is we just have to count the number of stars in the given string and the number of hashes in the given string, and finally we have to return what? We just have to return the difference of it. And also they have given an important note that the output is not positive all the times. The output may be positive, may be negative, or it can also be 0. So if the output was always a positive integer, then that would have, given us an idea that we just had to print, the difference, the absolute value of the difference of the number of stars and number of hashes. But here they directly mentioned us that the output can be positive or it can also be negative. So which means, so we need to take care of one more condition here. So which is, they say that if the star is greater than hash, that means if the number of stars in the given string is greater than the number of hashes in the string, then the output should be positive. So which means, so we should have to subtract from the number of stars the number of hashes, right? So we have to subtract the number of hashes from the number of stars. So according to the second case they have given, if the number of hashes is greater than number of stars, then we have to print negative integer, which means the same, right? So if the number of hashes is more than the number of stars, if we do number of stars minus number of hashes, then that would obviously give us a negative integer. And if the number of stars is equal to the number of hashes, then we obviously give the return as 0. So we don't have to worry about that, because that will anyhow result in 0. So we just need to print the number of stars minus the number of hashes. So to give you an example, so we are given an example here. So the example they have given is, so the first example they have given is hash, then another hash, then 3 strings. Now we just have to count how many hashes in this. How many hashes? So 3 hash strings, right? So 3 hashes are there and 3 stars are there. Now what we have to do, we just have to subtract star minus hash. Now how many stars? 3. Hashes 3. So 3 minus 3 would be 0. Now we will take one more example for this case, right? So when the number of stars is greater than number of hashes. So for that, we can say we can take 3 stars. Okay, we'll take 4 stars and 3 hashes. Now, if we count how many stars are there in this, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 stars and there are 1, 2, 3. So 3 hashes. So if we print star minus hash, what it would be? So 4 minus 3, which is 1. So output will be positive when the number of stars is actually greater than the number of hashes. So which follows this particular condition. And if we go for this condition, so if the number of stars is just 2 and the number of hashes, if it is more than 2, let's say, okay, so here the number of stars is actually just 2 and the number of hashes, it's actually 3. So if we print 2 minus 3, the number of stars minus the number of hashes, that would be minus 1. So which follows again this condition. If the number of hashes is greater than the number of stars, the output should be a negative integer, and our code actually follows that rule because the number of hashes was greater than the number of stars here. So our output was also negative, which means it is following our conditions. So we just have to, basically do star count minus hash count, and that will be our answer for this question. Okay. So with this assumptions and with this prior knowledge, let us move into the code part. Now, before moving into the code part, I just want to give you a rough idea of how our code is going to look like. So let's say we are given a function, let's say f, and we are given a string yes. What we are going to do, so if this is our function, what we are going to do is, so we are going to loop through the string, loop through the given string, yes, and for every character of that string, if that character is a star, then we will increment star count by 1, right? So a star count plus is equal to 1, or else if that is a hash, then we will increment our hash count by 1. And finally, what we'll do, so at the end of our function, we'll directly return the star count minus the hash count, and that will be our answer. So this is what we're going to code it in the code editor or IDE, whatever you are using. So let me open my IDE, which is IntelliJ IDEA. So here, so according to the question, so the question says that we are given only a string s, right? So we'll take only a string s. So this is how I will take the input for string, and I'll store my answer by calling a function, let's say solve, right? I'll pass the string s as a parameter and I'll just print answer. Right now, I just have to implement the function solve, right, which returns a integer value, public static int solve string s. So in most of the coding competitions, what happens is, so actually these all things will be taken care by the problem setters itself, problem setters themselves. But we are only given with this function and we just have to return an integer value which accepts a parameter of type string, and we have to return the according to the question, like whatever the question asks us to do, we just have to do that. So we, instead of writing the entire code, most of the companies prefer to give only a function based problems where you have to just implement your code inside of the function instead of writing the whole code by yourself, which will save your time, right? So that's one thing. Okay, now, so what did I say? So we just have to loop through the entire string, and if the current character that you are at is, if that is a star, then you have to increment your star count by 1, or else if that particular thing or particular character is a hashtag, then you have to increment your hashtag count by 1. And finally, at the end of your loop and at the end of your function, before you close your function parenthesis function brackets, you just have to return your star count minus hashtag count, right? So first of all, we'll initialize both of them, right? So we'll initialize star count as 0 and also hash count as 0. Now, what we will do, we'll write a for loop which runs from 0, and it will go till string's length, and the increment happens one at a time. Now we will say, if the current character, if the s.char at I, if that is a star, then we will do something, or else if s.char at I, right, if that is a hashtag, we will do something. Now, what is the something here? If the character at the present index, that means if the current character that you are at, if that is a star, then what you will do, you will just increment your star counter, right? You will increment your star count by 1. So it can be done using star count plus plus, or star count is equal to 1, or star count is equal to star count plus 1. You can go for any way that you like, right? Now, if the current character you are at, if that is a hashtag, what you have to do, you just have to increment your hash counter by 1, right? So you will increment your hash counter by 1. And finally, so before your function ends, what you have to do is you just have to return your star count. So you have to return star count minus your hash count, and that's your answer. So that's it. So this is it, your answer. And let's say if we run this, and we will run for, some basic examples to check whether it is running properly or not. Let's say if the given string is, okay, so if the given string is 3 stars and 3 hashes, let's say, so the answer will be 0 as anticipated. And if we run it for the first case where the number of stars is more than the number of hashes, we will see what happens in this case. Okay, there are only 2 hashes, but there are 5 stars. The answer should be 5 minus 2, which is 3. So it is running properly for that case as well. And one more case where the number of stars is less than the number of hashes. Okay, the number of hashes are more, the number of stars is just 2. So this will be negative because the number of hashes will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 minus 2. Okay, so hash count is 9 and star count is 2. So what we are doing is star count minus hash count, which is 2 minus 9, which will be minus 7. So all the results are as anticipated. So you can write this code and you can, execute your answer. So that's it for today. And in the next video, we'll try to discuss more coding problems. So that are being asked in TCS, and the level of difficulty will keep on gradually increasing. So stay tuned for further coding problems. So this is it for this video. Thanks for watching. Thanks a lot.